Hi there, Nikki Does here once again with another varied video. This time something aviation themed, spark plugs. I would think most of you have seen a spark plug before, but aviation spark plugs are generally a little bit different. In any case, I've got quite a few of them here that I was going through for various reasons, which I can explain, but I got thinking, I wonder if there's been a video up there about aviation spark plugs before. So right here on my bench, I've got quite a few spark plugs, and let's talk about why I've got so many. If we count it up here, we're all matrix people, so we have 4 times 6, that's 24 spark plugs sitting here. And they are, compared to an automotive style or lawnmower spark plug, they're relatively massive. I'm going to slide these back a bit now. And let's take a look at one of these. And let's start with why there are 24 of them here. What kind of 24-cylinder airplane might I be flying? None at all, in fact. I fly a 6-cylinder airplane, so 6 cylinders, that's 4 times the spark plugs that I would need for 6 cylinders. And by the way, these aren't in the airplane engine. Well, it turns out for all things aviation, if one thing fails, you would like another thing to be there just in case. So in an airplane engine, you have an upper spark plug and you have a lower spark plug for each cylinder. For most airplane engines, let's say, the kind that are kind of like the Lycoming and Continental typical airplane engines. So you have 2 spark plugs for each. And even when you say, well, here are my 2 spark plugs, there's still a lot of differences. If we were to look at an automotive spark plug, there would be 1 center electrode and a thing that comes over the top, a second electrode that rises over the top and hovers very much like my finger is hovering over that center electrode right now. But in this case, we have this kind of radial situation where there is a center electrode and then there's this arc. I don't mean a sparky arc, I mean an actual portion of a curve. Let's get a little zoomed in here and see what we can see. Are we going to focus on that? There we go. So there's an arc in here with this neutral electrode that's consistently around it on both sides. There's tons of places for an electric arc to form between the center electrode and the body of the plug. And you can see how massively thick that is. And these are actually called massive electrode plugs. That's exactly what they're called. This is a Tempest Unison plug. So the Unison is the brand name, but it's actually made by Tempest. It says Autolite, but it's actually made by Tempest. Right here in North Kakalaki in North Carolina, not too far from Winston, the towns of Winston-Salem. So this particular plug has massive electrodes, and there are fine wire electrode plugs too, and the electrodes are made of things like iridium, and they hover right over the top just like we saw before, but there are still 2 electrodes. In case one fails, there's a second one to take over. So not only do you have a second electrode to work, but you also have a second spark plug. And even if those 2 failed, the engine would run quite well on not all the cylinders, even if something failed so that both these plugs stop sparking, which is highly, highly unlikely. There's a lot of other reasons why it doesn't run on all the cylinders. This is probably one of the most rare reasons. So then down here, you can see down the throat or body of the plug, there's an insulator. Let's get something pointy. So there's an insulator here, an insulator sleeve. And then down all the way to the bottom in here is the center electrode. And it's quite far down in there. Let's zoom back out a bit. It's quite far down in there. And then another bizarro thing, if you've seen other spark plugs, you won't see this kind of threaded body. You would see the insulator. Well, this time the insulator is completely hidden by this sleeve in here. And you can imagine that when you put the spark plug wires on or in here, the wire inserts in and there's a nut that goes over the top. So to replace the spark plug is a multi-step process. You first have to remove the spark plug wire by removing this nut, and then you put a long socket over the top and you remove the spark plug. One thing I didn't put in here initially is these are the copper washers. So these are the sealing washers that go between the spark plug and the engine. And these being copper work hardened. So when you tighten these once, they're kind of garbage. And I'll say kind of with an asterisk. So here, if I were to use this spark plug washer or gasket, and I torqued it down properly, which you would want to do, you would absolutely put a torque wrench on here and torque this down properly, not just crank on it and walk away. That would crush this washer the right amount, and it would be used at that point. Now, if you do want to restore these to their ever so new goodness, you can do that. It's actually very easy, and it's a well accepted practice. You string them up on a piece of wire, and you take a ordinary propane torch and you heat them up until they turn a bit reddish, turn a little color, and then you let them cool naturally, and that will anneal them such that they're ready to take a new work hardening when you were to reset them. And again, that is a very accepted procedure. I think these are 75 cents per piece. So, you have 12 every time you change your spark plugs. So you have 12. So that's like, pushing $10 for just for the spark plug washers. So it's well worth it. So why do I have 24 spark plugs sitting here? And the reason for that is because when they do get fouled, and they do get fouled because the fuel for aviation engines, for almost every aviation engine, includes lead. And there's some new things happening on that. So if you're interested in the topic of leaded or unleaded fuels, there are some fuels that just got released. But up until, I'm going to say a year ago, all motor fuel for certified aircraft was essentially, everything with that aviation has an asterisk, essentially has quite a bit of lead in it. And that lead finds its way to the inside of this spark plug and coats the entirety of this spark plug, and it fouls the plug. Eventually, if you don't clean your spark plugs, you'll end up shorting out that electrode and it won't make a spark anymore, and then you have to rely on hopefully the other one, the lower or the upper spark plug, to work. And if you said, well, how do you know your spark plug's not working? I would say because a lot of engines, a fair number of engines, have engine monitors, and those engine monitors have exhaust gas temperature probes, and you watch, like a hawk actually, you watch the exhaust gas and cylinder head temperature for each of your cylinders. If you have a 6-cylinder engine, you have 6 bar graphs and 6 numbers, and the bar graphs show you both the cylinder head temperature, or CHT, and the exhaust gas temperature, or EGT, and you know very well what your exhaust gas temperature and your cylinder head temperature should be under normal operating conditions. And you have alarms set so that when those start to go out of spec, the bar graph turns red and things start flashing a bit to notify you that there is a potential problem. So certainly I've run the airplane engine when one cylinder isn't running well, and you'll see a difference in exhaust gas temperature, and that is a indication that you need to land and figure out what the problem is. So generally, we'll find that during the run-up phase. You don't usually end up doing that in flight. But if the engine starts running a little bit crummy, that's a first indication. But you should be changing your plugs fairly often. So back to the original topic. Love my digressions here, but back to the original topic. Having 2 extra sets of spark plugs means that whether I do it or the mechanic does it, I could have at least 1 spare set at all times. So if I need to change out a set in a hurry, I can always come back and I have 1 good set ready. The second set might be out at the mechanic getting cleaned up and tidied up for the next cycle in. Generally, I would have cleaned quite a few of them myself, but yeah, I liked having 2 sets at all times. So 6-cylinder engine, that means I had 36 spark plugs running, available to run at any time. So pretty crazy. Anyway, just one of those unusual stories for aviation, and there are oodles of those. So if you have comments or questions, and I'm pretty sure aviation people always have comments, but if you have comments or questions, please let me know down in the comments. Like the video if you like it. It takes you just a second, and it really helps me out a lot. And subscribe, because I'm just under 2,000 subscribers, and that would be a cool little milestone for my silly little channel. Thanks for watching, and hope you join me on the next one.